Welcome to Trojan Talk, episode 55. My name is Cole Purvis. I'm here with Troy Bolduc and Josh Pulsifer. How's it going today, boys?
It's first day of spring. What can you argue about in Maine? That's great.
Yep, the time change was somewhat recently, so now it's starting to get darker a little bit later, so that's nice. It's always a good feeling.
Of course, first day of spring, as you mentioned, and spring sports for TA are starting this coming Monday, just 6 days from now. Of course, pitchers and catchers for baseball have already started practicing, but every other sport will get going Monday. Our next episode, which will hopefully be next week, is going to be focused a lot more on those spring sports teams like baseball, softball, boys and girls lacrosse, tennis, all that good stuff, but we'll get into that next week. I just want to quickly wrap up the winter season because, of course, we haven't done an episode since the Thornton Academy hockey team made their postseason run, and it was a great one, of course. The first game of the postseason, the quarterfinal round, they go on the road to Family Ice Center against Falmouth and go to 4 overtimes, came back from 2-0 initially, and they were down 3-2, and Nick Down and Gold tied it late in the third period. And then 4 overtimes later, it was Jake Skillings that won that game. Troy, of course, you were at the game with me. What was it like, first off, to be in the fan section watching that game, and what do you take away from that amazing win for TA?
I mean, yeah, that was definitely one of the most energetic, exciting games I've been to as a student at TA. I mean, even 4 overtimes, it was a really long game, but everybody was invested the whole time, and it was a ton of fun. Everyone was super hyped at the very end when TA scored and they came over to the boards, and as we were seniors, we were in the front row, we were right on the board, so it was great. It was one of my favorite experiences I've had going to a TA athletic event as a student.
I was there too with Mr. Christian Berry and friend of the show, and it was a great experience. I think probably my favorite part, besides them winning, of course, was kind of like what you said there, Troy. Was that end experience, seeing how excited the student section was, and that connection that the student section has to the teams, not just for hockey, but most of our teams here at TA. So that was a pretty cool experience. I've never been to a quadruple overtime hockey game, so that was a kind of a cool thing. I had my 2 young boys with me. They're like, when are we going to go home? I'm like, once it's over. Yeah. So it was a long experience for all of us. I mean, we were there for probably over 4 hours from before the game to the end of the game. So it was one of those once-in-a-lifetime things, hopefully that we all can remember for a long time to come.
The ups and downs of a game like that are pretty unbelievable. You go down 2-0 and you think the season's a wrap, and then they score 2 goals in the second period, 24 seconds apart. That really gave them a lot of life. And I actually saw Coach Gagnon the day after the game, and he said, when you're in the locker room after 3 overtimes of a playoff game, you've said all that there is to be said. Just go out there, keep playing, keep fighting, and of course running on only adrenaline, they were able to win that game. And of course they got a good rest going into the next game, which unfortunately for TA hockey did not go as well, losing 4-0 to Lewiston. But it does make me feel a little bit better that Lewiston went on to win the state championship 5-0 against Bangor, so they were clearly the best team this season. Great run for TA. Of course, their title as reigning champs will come to an end. Of course, won it back in 2023. Lewiston won it this year, 5-0 over Bangor. As I mentioned, in Class B, it was Chevrolet Yarmouth who won a 4-3 thriller over Camden Hills. I was able to call that game for NFHS. That was a really fun one to watch. And yeah, that wraps up the winter sports season. A great run for hockey, great season for them. Group of seniors that are going to leave this program with a lot of memories. Of course, the state championship win last year. And then boys basketball didn't have the best regular season, but pulled it off in the first round of the playoffs to advance to the Cross Insurance Arena. So some good success in the postseason for TA sports, and we'll get into the spring sports next week as we move into another season. I want to ask you about something non-sports related. It is, of course, Winter Carnival Week at TA, and that means we've got some spirit days. Today is students dress like a teacher day, and teachers dress like a student day. Mr. Pulsifer is pretty upset that I did not participate.
Devastated would be the proper word.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, but Mr. P just went with a nice sweatshirt today. I have to say, though, he didn't complete the look. If he had joggers, it would have been complete.
I didn't have joggers. I wore jeans
today.
I wore my Jordans. I tried. I even have my name badge. I'm Troy Bolduc today.
Okay. And Troy has the quarter zip with the golf
I'm known
shirt
for my
under
quarter zips with the golf shirt. That's my go-to. So you did a good job.
Yep.
Very well done.
Best one I saw, shout out to Jeremiah Chessie, who dressed up as Mr. Carlson. Wore basically what Troy's wearing with a flannel underneath it. He's always got the end of the flannel shirt coming out of the sleeves. So that was the best one I saw.
And you can't forget about the backwards watch, too. That was a nice touch.
Of course.
Ooh. See, it's those little details
Yeah.
that really, try to make the whole outfit work.
Yeah, yesterday was PJ Day. Today, as I mentioned, students dressed like a teacher. Tomorrow is college/career day, so we'll see a lot of that. I'm sure that'll be a high participation one because it's a fairly easy thing to do. And then Thursday is a new one, Sunglasses Day. I don't know how I feel about
think I'm
that.
participating.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't think I'd want to wear sunglasses indoors for like 8 hours. That's
Maybe people will just take it as like Glasses Day and they'll wear like some fun glasses or something.
Sure.
And then Friday to support the Red Cross, I think, is red out, so students will wear red. Thoughts on the Spirit Days? I think it could be worse. We've definitely had worse ones in the past. We've definitely had better ones. Do you like some of the selections?
For me, like, I'm never a fan of PJ Day. Like, I would never find myself participating. Yeah.
I love it.
I mean, as a teacher and adult, I don't think I'm going to wear PJs to work. That's just me, though. I mean, I know I saw some staff members wearing PJs yesterday or just comfy clothes, maybe you could call it. I would like to substitute that one. I think maybe substitute Sunglasses Day, too. I'm not a huge fan of that. I love dress like a teacher or dress like a student day. I think this is a fun one today. I think the college day or career day tomorrow will be a fun one, like you said. The red out on Friday will be a good one. To add something, gosh, I don't know. I know we've done like sports days in the past. Those have been popular. Class color days are popular at times. And I know you don't want to do everything the same as like the homecoming spirit week too. I'm not sure. Like sometimes the anything but a backpack. I know we did that at homecoming. That was a fun one.
Yep.
I don't know what I would want as a new one. Do you guys have any suggestions?
I mean, I know it's pretty tough to come up with ideas. I know. I think it's our student council comes up with them.
Yes.
I think it's tough. It's a tough task to come up with ones that people will actually participate in. So and trying to be original, not use the same ones every single time. Obviously, you have the staples like PJ Day and all those, but. Yeah, no, it's tough. I don't know what I would do if I was in student.
If I were president of the United States, first bill that I'm signing is that every school is mandatory Friday PJ Day. That's what I do every single week.
Even for the staff?
Yeah, sure. Why not?
Wow.
It makes you feel just so much better when you get to wear PJs to school, like so much more free. I don't know, but yeah, PJ Day.
I had a little pep in my step today, dressed as Troy. I felt so. Maybe you're on to something there.
All right, we are going to get into the bulk of this episode, which, of course, it is March Madness week. The tournament starts this Thursday afternoon. Really, it starts tonight with the first four in Dayton, but the real games get going on Thursday afternoon, and for that, we have a couple special guests. Aiden and Brandon Vitiello, both seniors at TA, are going to come in here and talk about the brackets with us, so we will be back right after that interview. All right, we want to welcome in Aiden and Brandon Vitiello, both seniors here at Thornton Academy. And, of course, Troy is still with us. How's it going today, boys? How excited are you for the tournament to start?
The tournament's my favorite time of year. Very excited. Very excited, and this year's been quite different, and lots of upsets, lots of unpredictability. It's going to make March really fun.
Yeah, you mentioned a lot of unpredictability this year. The top seeds have dropped at a crazy rate all season throughout the regular season, and then conference tournament week last week was pretty crazy because UConn, the only number one seed out of the Power 6 conferences to win their conference. Of course, the highlight of conference week was NC State out of the ACC making an incredible run to the title game where they knocked off Duke, Virginia, and North Carolina in consecutive days. The number 10 seed making it all the way to the championship and then winning. Thoughts on the tournament week overall? Of course, the Big East tournament's always fun. What were your main takeaways?
I think that it showed the unpredictability. Purdue looked good. Most of the game against Wisconsin fell apart late, and that's why they lost. And then Wisconsin lost to Illinois. So I just think it was really unpredictable. UNC looked really good against Pittsburgh, and then NC State really just took them apart. DJ Burns is a big man, and he just fully bodied down low. Big East was probably the best, in terms of, everything, kind of fell into place, but the rest of the tournaments were quite whack. I think nobody's paying attention to Oregon out of the Pac-12, but they put together an impressive run, and, with Arizona losing there, and then with Terrence Shannon from Illinois, 40-point, that tied the Big Ten tournament record for most points in a game, and them winning, I think some lower seeds in the conference tournaments are going to, they could even outperform some of the higher seeds when it comes to next week.
Yeah, and then Selection Sunday, the big thing to me, a lot of people are very upset with the committee this year. And, of course, people are going to be upset no matter what. But I think especially this year, a lot of it has to do with the fact that there were so many bid stealers this year. NC State being the perfect example, a team that wouldn't have had a prayer of being in the tournament if they hadn't made a run. And then some of these other mid-major conferences were won by some unlikely teams, which means that the bubble shrunk this year for those at-large teams. And the biggest thing that stood out to me was only 3 teams from the Big East got a bid to the tournament. Of course, a team like Seton Hall, St. John's, I thought was a huge snub. They weren't even on the last 4 out, so they were like, in the committee's opinion, they were like not even close, which I thought they should have been in the tournament. And then Providence is another team. Was there anything that the committee did that you like severely disagree with, and your thoughts on the Big East only have having 3 teams?
I probably would have liked to have had them in. I personally said, like, Seton Hall was the one that really could have been upset. They beat UConn by 15 points, and they were 13-7 in the Big East Conference. Pitt was another one that really kind of, I felt, got snubbed. But at the end of the day, when you look at these bubble teams, it's like Virginia, everyone was going crazy. Virginia's not good in this metric and that metric. They have 9 losses, and St. John's had 14, 15 losses. So I really think that, like, maybe the metrics don't line up. Indiana State was another team. They had 6 losses, but they're in a very low conference, and they lost their conference tournament to Drake. So I think there was a lot more controversy this year, but you can't really say that any, like, team that needed to be in didn't get in.
Yeah, but when you look at a team like Virginia, 2-7 against Quad 1 teams, those 2 wins that they got, one was against Clemson, who I don't think is that good, only won by 1 point. And then the other one was their first Quad 1 game of the entire season, which was way back at the beginning of the year against Florida, only by 3 points. So only 2 Quad 1 wins for Virginia, and they were by 3 points and 1 point. I don't think they should have gotten in the
tournament. think there's enough. If you look, I just looked at St. John's. They lost by 16 points to Michigan, who was 3-17 in the Big Ten this year. Like that, some of these losses are just. Yeah, they lost to Dayton too. Couldn't even beat Dayton.
But I mean, there's nothing that Virginia has on this resume that's really super impressive.
That's correct. But
their best win of the season is Clemson or Florida, depending on who you think is better. And for Virginia to be in the tournament and St. John's to not even be on the last 4 out, I think is crazy.
I just think maybe there was like they could have flip-flopped a couple teams, but nobody that was like there was no robbery. Like there really wasn't. If like Seton Hall they had like 12 or 13 losses too. You got to win more games if you want to get in. I don't really know what else to say.
I think overall you got to win. Like what he just said, you got to win more games to get into the tournament. There's nobody that I really think was really snubbed that much. I think you could make a case for Seton Hall. You could make a case for Providence or St. John's out of the Big East. But when you look at Pittsburgh,
Pitt is the one that I think really had the best. Me and Jay Billis have agreement on that one because they've been playing better basketball as of late. They came pretty close against UNC. They beat Duke and they beat Virginia twice.
The wins out of the ACC
or NC State twice.
I know Syracuse beat them twice.
The wins out of the ACC are just not enough, and they don't have enough quality wins, in my opinion, to justify being an at-large bid.
All right, well, a lot of discussion around who got into the bracket, but let's get into the actual bracket. The first round, of course, starts this Thursday at, I think, 12:15 p.m., and then, of course, the first 4 tonight and tomorrow. There are going to be some interesting matchups, battles for the 10 seed in those. But we're going to take it region by region and start with the East. UConn, a big favorite in that one. However, there are 3 other conference champions in this region, all Power 6 conferences. Iowa State winning the Big 12, Auburn winning the SEC, and Illinois winning the Big 10. Aiden, I'll start with you. Who could take down UConn in this region?
I think when you look at Illinois or Auburn, I think both of those teams have quality wins on the resume and have shown that in the big moment they can step up and play their A game, especially in the conference tournaments. And I would give Auburn or Illinois the best shot to knock off UConn. However, in my personal bracket, I have UConn winning it all.
Troy, you have UConn winning it all as well, which we'll get into some predictions later, but your thoughts on this UConn team as they try and go for a repeat champion, first time since Florida back in 2007, 2008.
I mean, yeah, the team that I have that's the furthest up in that eastern region is Illinois, and I have UConn taking them out, and I also have UConn going all the way, not to spoil too much, but I think UConn is just a really well-rounded team, and I think they're going to be tough to beat.
The only team that I really think has a chance is Auburn because they play like a different style of basketball than UConn. All-American Janai Broom, he great center for them, and I think they are like peaking at the right time. Iowa State is also peaking, but I feel like they're one of those teams. It's like really, really good team, well-rounded. They killed Houston, but they're one of those teams that just they play a kind of a similar style of ball to UConn, and UConn is just better in every facet. And then Illinois, they're like I don't know. They gave up 97 points to Minnesota in a win a couple weeks ago and 90 to Penn State in a loss. And neither of those teams came anywhere near making the tournament. So defense is a struggle for them. But if they can fix up the defensive struggles, Terrence Shannon could lead them far. But I'm picking UConn in all those games if any of them.
You guys are actually going to Boston to watch some tournament action, the Sweet 16 games. You could see a potential Auburn versus UConn matchup in the Sweet 16. That would be amazing. I think that's basically the championship of this region because I agree. I don't think Illinois is knocking off UConn, and neither is a team like Iowa State. Dark horse out of this region. I mean, everybody's picking Drake despite them being a 10 seed against number 7 Washington State, a team that won the Missouri Valley Conference as the number 2 seed in that conference, taking down Indiana State, one of those other bubble teams that some people are outraged that they didn't get into the tournament, but they're led by Tucker DeVries. I think his dad is the coach. They were in the tournament last year. Any thoughts on them? You think they have a chance to possibly knock off Iowa State in a round of 32 game?
I'm just not seeing it. I mean, I think Iowa State is really built for the moment, and I think that overall they just have more like firepower, and it comes down to like what brand of basketball you play, and I just don't think any kind of brand of basketball that Drake has in their like repertoire, I don't think it matches up with Iowa State.
All right, let's move on to the West region. The top seed is North Carolina, the Tar Heels. The number 2 seed, the Arizona Wildcats, led by Caleb Love, former UNC Tar Heel. So if those two teams meet in the Elite Eight, it would be a Caleb Love revenge game for sure. The number 3 seed in that region is, hold on, let me find it. It's Baylor. Yep, the number 4 seed is Alabama. Aiden, I think this is one of the weaker regions. Your thoughts?
I think, this is a region where you need to look out for some of the underdogs. In my bracket, I had Charleston. I think they're going to at least make the round of 32. I don't think Alabama's very strong, and I think they'll knock them off. And I think you can never count out St. Mary's. I mean, they finished ahead of UConn and out in the Mountain West, and when you look at a possible Elite Eight matchup between Arizona and UNC with Caleb Love, a revenge game, I think that'd be interesting to see. But don't count out Baylor. Scott Drew is a terrific coach. He always has a very disciplined defensive team, and they played a great schedule and succeeded really well in the Big 12, which was, if not the toughest league, the second toughest league in college basketball this year. So I really think you can't count out Baylor either, but I'd say UNC is going to go far in this tournament.
Brandon is, of course, a huge North Carolina Tar Heels fan. This is your region, honestly.
He's even repping their colors today.
Honestly, I think UNC got an extremely easy draw. I don't think Baylor really would scare you that much. And Arizona, a team that's super talented, but I don't really think that they have that championship pedigree. They have the talent, but they're a frustrating team that I think plays down to the level of their competition a lot. What are your thoughts on this region?
So Michigan State, not a good team, but I think it's notable that they're like 25th appearance in a row. It's like the leader right now for most appearances in a row. Everyone's picking New Mexico State to go far. Big Cinderella story.
Everybody.
A lot of people.
Just because I am.
No, but I've seen quite a number. They're not going to get past Arizona. Nevada, another one of the Mountain West teams everyone thinks could pull a few upsets. I don't have them going past Arizona. Do I think UNC is going to get out of the region? Yes, but could they lose to? They could if they don't play good, they could honestly lose to St. Mary's or Arizona. But I really want to see that Arizona-Carolina game because I just think that would be like a great storybook matchup. And to comment on Alabama, they're going out in the round of 32, and giving up 90 points a game is just not going to fly in the tournament. And they're just not going anywhere. So I got Carolina coming out of the region.
Alabama would play the winner of St. Mary's and Grand Canyon. I think Grand Canyon could pull off the upset. I have St. Mary's winning that, but could certainly see that.
I don't have Alabama making it out of the first round.
I could see it. I mean,
they're
College of Charleston.
They're quite the team. A lot of points, giving up a lot of points too.
Yeah, they lost in the first round of the SEC tournament,
Yep.
which the top 3 seeds in the SEC lost in the first round, so that was interesting to see. But I think that this region is so wide open. I think it's the weakest of all 4 regions, which I know you disagree about. You think it's a Midwest, which we'll get.
I know,
to
I
in a
agree
little
because
bit.
Baylor's awful. They're just not.
I don't think Baylor's that good. I don't trust Arizona, super talented. I don't trust them in the tournament though. I think this region is wide open, and we're going to see some wacky stuff happen in this region. I have UNC getting to the Elite 8. One bold prediction that I have, Nevada knocking off Nevada, the 10 seed, beating Dayton in the first round, the 7, and then knocking off Arizona, the 2, in the round of 32. And then New Mexico, as you mentioned, I have New Mexico versus Nevada, an all-Mountain West matchup in the Sweet 16 with the right to go play in the Elite 8. I have New Mexico winning that one. We'll get into some of my picks on who I think is going to win the region, but I think we could see a Cinderella run from the number 11 seed New Mexico Lobos and meeting the UNC Tar Heels in the Elite 8.
I see where we're going.
What do you mean?
With your Final Four, but we'll get into that later.
We'll have to see. Never know. Next up, the South region, led by Houston, the number 1 seed. Marquette with Shaka Smart, the number 2 seed. Kentucky, Aiden's a big Kentucky Wildcats fan, the number 3 seed. Houston coming off of a blowout loss in the Big 12 championship against Iowa State. I think they're vulnerable coming into this tournament. But, of course, you have a team like Duke that I don't really think has a ton of upside either. Let's start with this. I think the most intriguing first-round matchup in the entire bracket is 5 seed Wisconsin against 12 seed James Madison. Your thought on that game and the entire region?
I have to agree with you there. I think Wisconsin is probably the most underrated team in the entire tournament. They hit a rough patch in the middle of the season, but they've come on really, really strong. They took out Purdue, who was the 1 seed in the Big Ten tournament, and I think they're a really well-coached team that could go far. I'm a huge Kentucky Wildcats fan, and the only team in the South region that I would fear us having to play would be a matchup with Wisconsin, and I think that Wisconsin could very easily make a deep run and be a 5 seed to make an Elite 8 or Final Four.
Wisconsin's a really interesting team. Like you mentioned, started off the season, they were number 6 in the entire country at one point, and then lost to Purdue, and then went on a crazy losing streak where they were losing. They lost a game to Juwan Howard in Michigan, and they had a pretty atrocious season. So they had some peaks and valleys for sure, but of course, lost in the Big Ten championship after beating Purdue in the semifinals.
So I think that this region is really it's a toss-up. I have absolutely no idea who's going to win. I picked Marquette to beat Wisconsin in the Elite 8. Kentucky, I just don't really see it. They have so much talent, but there's a lot of games where they've either lost a game because they can't make shots down the stretch or defensively. And Houston, with that 30-point loss in the Big 12 championship, they're done. They're going to beat Longwood, and then Nebraska's going to beat them.
Really?
Yes.
Wow. And
Duke is going to lose in the round of 32, too. So I think the big team here is Marquette really has a position to go pretty far with this bracket. I think it favors them. And then Wisconsin's the dark horse, but I think they could go far. James Madison in that first round, I think if Wisconsin gets past James Madison, they're going to go far. But I don't know. 30-3 is quite impressive in any conference. So James Madison's good to watch.
You have to pay attention to Tyler Kolek's health as well for Marquette. He did
absolutely.
Yep.
In their championship game with UConn.
I think they were probably just resting him for the tournament. I think if that tournament were like a national championship game, they would probably find a way to be out on the floor. But I think the big storyline coming out of this region is, a team like Marquette with Shaka Smart. He hasn't really broken through yet. I think he had an early exit last year.
That's why I'm worried. Really worried about my pick. I still have them in the Final Four, but they could easily go out early. He just seems to. So he brought VCU to the Final Four, but it's up and down with him.
And they're not really in a rhythm. As you mentioned, Kolek's been out, so they haven't really been playing with their true lineup in a couple weeks. So we'll see how that goes. Of course, Houston, the top seed. And now we transition to the Midwest, our final region that we will be breaking down. Zach Edey and the Purdue Boilermakers, the number 1 seed. The number 2 seed at the bottom of the bracket, Dalton Connect and the Tennessee Volunteers. Those are the 2 front runners. Of course, Edey's going to win it, but the 2 front runners for the National Player of the Year, and they could possibly meet in an Elite 8. What are your thoughts on that region?
So, first of all, I think I might have mentioned this before. Just like a half an hour ago, they've released the AP All-America teams. I think Edey was Player of the Year, and Dalton Connect was on the first team. So, 2 of the most talented players in the country. Tennessee, I think, they're an okay team. They are the Dalton Connect show. Like there was a game against Kentucky I watched a few weeks ago where he had 40 points and they still lost because the rest of the team just didn't have it. Purdue, I don't know. They're gonna win a few, but if someone can find a way to contain Edie, which I think Creighton's my pick. They've got Kalkbrenner down low, and I think he can score on Edie and contain Edie. And then Shireman's a great player too. So I got Creighton in that region. One team to watch out for would be McNeese. They're coached by former LSU coach Will Wade. They're gonna beat Gonzaga in the first round, and then they're going to beat a depleted Kansas team. Bill Self has had quite a year.
Yeah, that team has really fallen off Kansas. Yeah, I'm not going to force pick against Gonzaga. A lot of people are saying like they don't have the talent that they've had in past years. I still think they're a good team, and they'll probably beat McNeese in the first round, but I agree. Kansas has completely fallen off a cliff after being the best team in the Big 12 for a large part of the year. I think they will go down in the round of 32 at the hand of Mark Few and the Bulldogs. Then they'll meet Purdue. I just don't think it's smart to pick against Purdue because people, think of them as chokers in the past, but they have better players around Zach Edey this year. You talk about Braden Smith, who averages 12.5 points per game. Lance Jones averages 12, and Fletcher Lawyer with 10. So they have
improved.
Four guys in double figures this year. I think they have a very good supporting cast around Edey, and some of those guys are new this year. Some of them have just come on stronger this year and have improved as players. I think they have a better supporting cast around him. I really don't like Purdue. I don't like watching the way Zach Edey plays. I don't think he's that skilled. He's just tall. But I think the players around him are really good.
When I look at the Midwest region, I think, as I mentioned before, Zach, I believe that this is the most toss-up region. I don't believe there's a single team here that I really trust other than Creighton. They returned Trey Alexander, returned Baylor Shireman, and Kalkbrenner. I think that they were my pick out of this region to go to the Final Four. You got to watch out for McNeese with Will Wade coaching. They're always going to be very strong, but I don't have a lot of faith in Tennessee. I watched their game a couple weeks ago with Kentucky, and if your best player, Dalton Knecht, is taking 29 shots, scoring 40 points, and you're still losing the game at home, something's really not right there. They also lost in the SEC tournament. I think there's a lot of problems there, and I don't see them making a run either. When it comes to Kansas, like you said, they fell off a cliff. There was a 30-point loss to Houston. They were terrible in the Big 12 Big 12 tournament. I don't see them making any run. I think Gonzaga could have a shot because people are really been down on them. But I think Mark Few does a great job coaching. But overall, I think Creighton will be the team to come to the Final Four.
I would add that Kansas has the most depleted roster. I think they've had two or three starters that are just missing 3 and 4 weeks at a time with injury, and it's just you can't win games like that.
Yeah, so we hadn't mentioned Creighton. That's another team led by Ryan Kalkbrenner, one of the 3 biggest teams that made the tournament. We limited time, so we're going to get to some picks real quick. Final Four, we've already revealed a couple, and I'll start with Troy on this one. Troy, your Final Four, tell us who you have in those 2 games as well as the championship, and who do you have bringing it home?
Okay, well, I have UConn taking down Arizona, and I have Houston taking down a little bit of a sleeper pick, potential bias maybe in play, but South Carolina making it to the Final Four. Yes, and but Houston, I have Houston taking out South Carolina, and I have UConn taking out Houston in the national championship.
Brandon, who you got?
I have UConn taking down North Carolina in the Final Four. My prediction in that game is RJ Davis is going to go crazy again as one of the best guards in the country, but the rest of the team's going to have a performance against NC State.
I mean, they got Cam Spencer from Rutgers, who's one of the best players in the country. They are so stacked, it's unbelievable.
They played earlier this year too, and it was close. And RJ Davis had a great game, but it's going to be a UConn maybe by 6 or 8 points. And then Marquette and Creighton. Creighton is they split the regular season, but there's too much talent. Shireman and Kalkbrenner is going to be way too much for Marquette. I think that'll be the game where it's the Shaka Smart, they fall apart in that game. And then UConn and Creighton. Creighton actually beat UConn earlier this season, which is one of their 3 losses. But Dan Hurley's on a mission, and whatever he's doing with them down in UConn, I don't know. I just think they're way better than everyone else.
He's crazy, but at the same time, I love him.
Yeah, they're gonna win again.
My picks, I think, from the Midwest, I said I had Creighton. Then from the South, I have Kentucky beating Wisconsin in the Elite Eight, reaching the Final Four. I have UConn out in the East, and then in the West, I have North Carolina. So then I'll have UConn beating North Carolina in the Final Four, reaching championship game. And then I have Kentucky beating Creighton and reaching championship game. And I think UConn will be just too much. I think Kentucky can put together several good games, but I think once you get to the big moment, I think it could be another 100-point giving up to Cam Spencer and Tristan Newman in UConn. And UConn's going to go back to back.
That just shows you how good UConn is, because we've got a UNC fan and a Kentucky fan. And as much as they want to be biased, they just can't, because they know that UConn is so good.
I think UNC could actually beat them, but I'm not picking them.
And remember last year,
they were beating everybody.
Like, Alabama was a clear favorite last year, and they
they-
lost, I think, in the Sweet 16 to New Mexico or to San Diego State. So really, nothing is a guaranteed. I wanted so badly to be different and pick somebody else out of the East region. When this bracket first came out, I had Auburn coming out, but I've changed I can't overthink it. Like, UConn is so stacked with the pieces that they have. Of course, we mentioned Donovan Clingan, the seven-footer. Tristan Newton, first-team All-American, I think you mentioned, off the air. Cam Spencer, the transfer from Rutgers, and Alex Caravan, who was a big part of that championship team last year. I have them out of the East. New Mexico, baby, out of the West Conference, the 11 seed. I think that's going to be the Cinderella.
Zona.
I mean, if
Zona's the only team that can beat Carolina.
if you've watched this
In that
season,
region, I think.
crazy things are going to happen. We're not going to have 3 1 seeds in the Final Four. We're not going to have 4 1 seeds in the Final Four. Crazy things are going to happen. We had FAU in there last year. We had San Diego State.
One of my crazy things, I have Auburn losing to Yale in the first round.
Really?
So,
Okay.
I
I
think
can see it.
I agree. No, I agree with what you're saying, but I think if Carolina gets past St. Mary's, there is no New Mexico. That it's just not going to.
We'll see. So New Mexico, and then I have another bold prediction, which I think I'm going to switch. But as of right now, I have the Florida Gators out of the South, which I know is a little bit of a wild pick. I think I might switch that. But again, I just think crazy things are going to happen. I don't think there's any way that 3-1 seeds get in. And then in the Midwest, like I said, Purdue, much better supporting cast this season. I'm cheering against them. It's almost one of those picks, because either like they get there and I'm right, or they lose and I'm happy because I don't like them. So UConn, New Mexico, Florida, and Purdue in the Final Four. I have UConn versus Florida in the championship game, pulling off an upset in the Final Four. And then I have Hurley and the Huskies repeating as national champions for the first time since Florida did it in 2007, 2008.
What is it about Florida other than a little run in the SEC tournament that you like?
I don't know. Of course, yeah, they made the championship in the SEC tournament. A lot of those other teams, like Houston, getting blown out by Iowa State in the Big 12 championship game. I don't know. It's a Cinderella pick. I don't know how much I actually believe in it, but that's my Final Four and my champion. All right.
Keep out a non-Kentucky here,
We'll see. It's going to be a crazy tournament. A lot of upsets are going to happen, and I can't wait to watch it all unfold. That's going to do it for this interview. For Brandon and Aiden, we will be back with Mr. Pulsifer and, of course, Troy in just a second. All right, we want to thank Aiden and Brandon VTLO for coming in and doing an interview about March Madness with us. Of course, Troy will be there as well, so he'll give his Final Four pick. But, of course, Mr. P's got to give his, too. I don't know if he's filled out a bracket, so I might be putting him on the spot in a major way here. But do you have any predictions for the tournament?
I've got predictions. I haven't filled out a bracket yet. I'm one of those people who I like to watch the first 4 tonight.
Yeah.
That's a lot of fun. And then I'll make my picks probably Wednesday night. I always believe this. I know a lot of people are catching on to this, but there's this like theory on offensive and defensive efficiency rating before the tournament. And there's only, I think 95% of the NCAA tournament winners since 1999 have been in the top 20 of both offensive and defensive efficiency in the country. So there's only 6 teams, I believe, this year that meet that criteria. So it's like one of those 6 teams is going to win, most likely. And again, I know it's kind of like sometimes people say that's a duh kind of comment because it's like, yeah, they're good at offense and defense. That's why they're one of the top teams. I mean, I think my number one is obviously UConn. I think they're going to repeat. One interesting thing I was looking at and I read about on X this week was UConn's travel for the NCAA tournament is minimal at best. They're not even going to board a plane for any of their games before the Final Four.
Yeah, they start in Brooklyn for the first 2 rounds, and if they win, they go to Boston.
Yeah, they're literally just going to drive to both destinations, which is crazy. No other team has that schedule. So they're going to be in a huge advantage just from a comfort standpoint. They're not going to have to plan out their stuff too much in advance. So I think just having that familiarity with staying in the Northeast here, very close to campus and stores, is going to be a huge advantage for them.
Yeah, you think about the 2 seed in that region is Iowa State. Like that's a big and then Auburn and Alabama.
Yeah.
Like
they're going to, I think, cakewalk into the Final Four just based on travel alone.
I agree. I really like this Auburn team, but of course UConn is just a wagon. We'll get into all of that later. Of course, I do want really quickly to talk about the New England Patriots and their offseason, and I'll start with you, Troy. The Patriots signed Jacoby Brissett as quarterback. A lot of people thinking, he's probably just a bridge guy. Perhaps they'll draft a quarterback at number 3 overall. If you're the Patriots, if you're Elliott Wolf, the acting GM right now, and Gerard Mayo, the head coach, Are you playing Jacoby Brissett this upcoming season? Are you playing the rookie, whether that's Drake May or Jaden Daniels or somebody like that? Or are you anticipating maybe week 8, week 9, middle of the season making a switch? What are you approaching that with?
I mean, I think in an ideal world, you'd be content with having Jacoby Brissett as the starter for the entire season and having him be competent enough to actually play the whole season. Mm-hmm. If he comes in and he doesn't look like he's ready to start and ready to play, if he looks like Mac Jones, he's making horrible throws and making costly turnovers, then it's not going to work. But in an ideal world, he's starting the whole season so that whoever we draft at the 3rd overall pick can have that full season to get adjusted to the NFL and adjusted to the system and all that stuff. Obviously, Mac Jones was our week 1 starter when he was a rookie, and that didn't work out too well. I mean, I know it does happen at times where a player will get drafted and they'll immediately be able to start and contribute and be good, like C.J. Stroud last year. But I feel like with a majority of when you see a quarterback be successful, they've had at least their first year to kind of rest. We're seeing that with Jordan Love now. He's had a few years to kind of sit behind Aaron Rodgers, and he came in this season and he played pretty well. Patrick Mahomes didn't have to play much his first year. Tom Brady didn't play his first year. All these guys that are, top quarterbacks are playing well, had that first season off. So I feel like your success rate in terms of actually getting a quarterback to be productive will be better if you have them sit the entire first season. So in an ideal world, Jacoby Brissett could be our guy the whole season.
Yeah, I kind of agree. Just to echo Troy's thoughts there real quick. I think this isn't the Patriots' year. They're going into it clearly, I don't think they have the expectation like we're going to go out there and win a Super Bowl. This isn't a Super Bowl roster right now. We're still lacking key playmakers on the offensive side of the ball. Defensively, I think that's a top 10 defense. I like the re-signings that they've done. I think they're very solid. They're going to have a great unit. Mayo, obviously, as their head coach, is obviously a defensive background, so I think they're going to be pretty aggressive and a little bit faster on defense this year. So I'm excited to see that. But I think Brissett is the best path forward. Just let whoever they draft develop for a year. And like Troy said perfectly, you listed some great players that didn't play their first year or their entire first year. Stroud has been kind of the, difference maker, obviously, for Houston last year. He kind of came out of, I wouldn't say nowhere, but certainly he progressed faster than people thought he would. Who they're going to pick, I have no idea. I really don't know. I think it's just going to be whoever's left out of those three. It's obviously not Caleb Williams, so it's really going to come down to a coin flip between May and Daniels. And I don't know if I have a preference or not. I don't think the Patriots are going to have a choice. I think they're going to be just stuck into one of them, and it's going to be whoever's left. That's kind of what happened with Mac Jones, I think, at 15 a few years ago, is they just took who was left at 15, and that worked out for a year and then didn't work out for the last 2 years. But again, it's an exciting time. I think obviously shipping out Mac Jones, I feel bad for Mac at the end of the day. I do. He had a tough go of it, and certainly wish him the best in Jacksonville and whatever's after that. But certainly the Patriots are not in a win now mode. I think it's going to be another rebuild year, put in a new culture, new regime, get the players to fit what they want to do, which I'm still not sure what that is yet. And then from there, we'll figure it out probably in 2025.
Yeah, with the weapons they have offensively, like throwing a rookie QB into the fire next year would be like how to break a quarterback 101. And we saw them kind of break Mac Jones. Of course, there's speculation as to whether, I think it's a mix of both. Mac was not exactly who we thought he was, especially after year one. Mm-hmm. I think Brissett's a guy that's, he's humble. He's going to, take the new QB under his wing and isn't really going to, stir the pot.
Yeah, I think he's a good veteran leader, like you said. He's going to help out and tutor whoever it is, if it's Daniels or May. Yep. He'll be good for the team, so.
All right, well, that is going to do it for this episode of Trojan Talk. This was episode 55. We will hope to get another episode out next week, but thank you all for watching and have a great day.